Okay, great. I think we have a really interesting call for the first one here. We got Jasmine, who is calling
Hello.
in from Canada. Jasmine, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Oh, hello, Dad, and congratulations, Richard, on your doctorate. Um, I kind of
Not his
think
doctorate, his
in.
professorship, his
Oh,
distinguished
oh,
professorship.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Anyways, congratulations either way. Um, I think instead of talking about fear, I kind of think I would like to talk about abortion because that raises a lot of emotions for a lot of people. So that's the topic I think I would like to discuss in terms of
Okay.
theism and atheism.
I will ask,
Uh,
whatever topic you screened with the call screener, you should talk to us about that.
okay, let's talk about fear. Um,
Okay.
I think that's the most powerful motivator for theists. Um, Either fear of God or fear of hell or both. I mean, yes, there's the happiness, there's the transcendence, but there is a lot of uh, fear that comes with leaving religion or even contemplating that. I mean, I get such a fearful, scared, hollow, even sick to my stomach sometimes when I start contemplating um, no God at all. So
Interesting.
it is a,
And Jasmine, I have here that you're a theist, according to our call screener. Is that true?
I guess a deconverting theist. Yes, I'm
Deconverting theist. Okay.
there. Yeah.
I
So
will say this.
it.
I want to hear Richard's take on this, but I will say, yeah, like the fear of hell was a motivating thing for me. I can't speak to every Christian's experience, but when I first said that I was an atheist out loud, I remember having nightmares about going to hell. I like that is very distinct in my mind. And that is a result of this conditioning that I was brought up with that there are going to be consequences for this non-belief. Not every Christian sect understands their theology that way, but that was the one I grew up with, and it was definitely harmful to my psychological health. I mean, that's one of the worst things I think it did for me for a while. I think the worst thing it is for me now is dealing with family and just the awkward social tensions that happen there. But hell doesn't bother me as much now. But at the time, it was a great way of me not deconverting. It was a great way for me to stay where I was at because why not just believe? Why not just believe? And then you have the insurance of not going to hell, right? It's Pascal's wager. Well, the truth is, of course, there's lots of religions, hells I'd be going to. It's not just Christianity's, but it's hard to think about it logically when you are overwhelmed with that sense of fear. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I think it, excuse me, my voice is just disappearing. Um, I think that fear is a very strong part of religion, and particularly things like hell are
Mm,
kind of, to me, quite a harmful concept because, as far as I'm concerned, they only exist, only exist in order to um, reinforce your belief, to keep you in the belief. And it's a very strange, I mean, hell hasn't always been part of Christianity. It's relatively newish, and it's something that's I can see why it's a trauma that you're
mm.
told every day that this will happen to you if you reject this religion, and you'll end up in this form of punishment, because there's nothing worse than that form of punishment. And I find it's very hard. The only way to get over the fear of hell is to go through a path of understanding that hell is actually impossible. It can't exist, uh, logically or emotionally, because for it to exist, that means people in heaven who love you must not care about you anymore in hell, and therefore they're not then in heaven. So it doesn't make any sense. There's no
Mm,
hell. Don't worry. But I understand the
interesting.
process of getting there is long and difficult, and like any fear, it's a case of a combination of getting over any fear is about confronting it, but taking your time confronting it. You know, if you were frightened of spiders, you don't shove someone in a room full of spiders to stop them being frightened of spiders. The opposite will happen. You introduce them slowly to images of spiders and pictures of spiders, and then you might let them have a spider on their hand, a tarantula, a nice cuddly one or something, and build up that way. And kind of getting over fear of hell is generally a similar thing that you have to slowly work your way from
Yeah.
this
It,
idea thing being there to let it eve away. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, like, the reason why we on shows like this make fun of ideas like that is not just 'cause we want to be crass. I mean, sometimes it is, but also it
Yeah.
is kind of a therapy for a lot of people. I mean, and I mean that in the loosest sense of that word, but like it is a way to destigmatize the fear that comes from this idea. I remember seeing
Mm.
atheists on YouTube talking openly about their non-belief and thinking, wow, like they just aren't afraid of the consequences, social or metaphysical, of doing this, and I think that gives people a sense of courage, and it gives people a sense of realizing, "Oh, yeah, this is just kind of a thought control. This is kind of an arbitrary limiter that we placed on ourselves, when talking about this subject." But anyway, we've both said a lot of things. Jasmine, what do you think?
Well, religion is a law about thought control. Uh,
Mm.
so my thought is what about the sort of more metaphorical, being separated from God kind of hell in your mind?
Yeah, like like
Yeah.
like like it's still a punishment,
Mm.
right? I mean, it's framed as a punishment because the idea is God is the most perfect good being in the universe, right? So you being separated from them means that you're gonna lack something. They still frame it as a well, actually, a lot of Christians frame it as a choice. They'll say, "Well, this is you making that
Mm.
choice," which is very loaded. If somebody came up to you with a gun and said, "You can either give me your money or I can shoot you," I mean, yeah, that's a choice, but like, it doesn't have to be that way, you know? So, I don't know. Yeah, it's still bad. I mean, it's still psychologically harmful, right? I think there's people who grew up with that kind of theology too, and it can definitely speak to, you know, that being bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the fear is almost never a choice.
Mm,
You kind of praise it, you can understand that you've got it, but it's one of the most potent circuits of our brain that make us
mm,
feel fear, because that's how we didn't get eaten by bears 100,000 years ago, because we saw a bear and ran away from it. It's a very
mm,
deep feeling that goes right back through the evolutionary, right back to insects and possibly beyond, depending on who you talk to. Um,
mm,
and I mean, this idea of not being able to, being out of the sight of God, and that being hell.
mm.
Personally, I don't even understand what that means. It doesn't
Yeah.
even make sense to me, because to me, I'm not in the sight of God now because there isn't one. So
Yeah.
what does
Good
that
point.
mean?
Good point.
But yeah, but it kind of
Well,
taps into, there's a type of fear. Islam is really good. There's a type of fear in Islam. There's lots of types of fear in Islam. There's like 12 of them. But one of them is to do with a fear of letting your dad down, if you like, letting God down. And I think that's what they mean. You've let your dad, God, down. So you're going to be put in a room and you're not allowed to talk to him anymore. So that kind of thing is the only way I can process that. Um, and yeah, just that's all I can say. There is no dad,
There is no dad.
and there is no room,
There is no room.
and there is no
Interesting.
spoon.
Jasmine, what do you
Yeah.
think?
well, it's interesting you bring that up because back to the fear, like fear of not filling my God-given purpose. I
Mhm.
feel like being separated from God, uh, kind of getting one's purpose from oneself. It's strange to me. So if I
It
have God,
yeah.
even if it's just a projection, you know,
There's a comfort there. Look, it's so funny you bring this up, Jasmine, because we were literally just talking about
Mm,
this before the show started. Richard and I and some other folks were having a conversation, and I was bringing up the fact that before I was doing any of this stuff, I thought one of God's plans for me was to work in Christian nonprofits. I thought I would have, like, a plan for me in that, and now I'm volunteering for an atheist nonprofit, which is hilarious. But, like, I think that construction, that idea just came from hope more than anything. It was like, "Well, I kind of like this thing, and I think if I like this thing, then God must have given me this desire And so this must be his intention for me. This must be his plan. And it's so much I felt so much more secure in my life when I thought that God has a plan. And now I don't think that there is a grand plan. And being in my mid-20s and not knowing if there's a plan or not, I mean, that's just constant existential dread that would be, maybe placated with a religion that tells me, oh, everything's gonna be fine. But no, I kind of have to just fend for myself. And that is one of the hardships you kind of have to bear when you deconstruct a Christian belief like that, especially one that tells you, yeah, everything's taken care of. God has a plan, and don't worry about it. But like, I do have to like pay bills and like, do other stuff. So it sucks, but it's I'd rather live in the real world. I'd rather have that sense of at least being closer to the real world. I don't know if, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I mean, anything else you want to tell us there, James? Your situation, because it sounds like you're thinking about a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to me, working without God is a little bit like almost working without a buffer. If you knew anything about blood, our blood pH has to be held in a very tight pH range. And it feels like atheism is like without a buffer. Like things come in and there's no filtration. There's no
That makes sense.
nothing to cushion the blow.
Mm.
Mm.
That does make sense. I definitely feel for you there. It is like for a lot of us, it's hard. That transition is really rough, and you feel like you land really hard. I mean, like there's a reason why organizations like the ACA exist, right? Like I've already alluded to this before, but it is kind of make it feel a little better, you know. Being an atheist is a lonely thing, because especially if you came from a really small community where everybody's a believer, because it's like you feel like you're the odd person out and you have this belief that's very unpopular. Many people feel is negative, sometimes offensive, only because you don't see the lie and you kind of just like see it is for what it is, which is just people talking in circles about this thing that probably doesn't exist, and they're just talking about their feelings, right? But it does get
I
better.
agree.
I think I cannot imagine being a non-believer before the age of the internet. Those of you guys who are doing it before, props to you guys, because like I my internet friends have gotten me through a lot of hard stuff. And hopefully, Jasmine, I don't know where you're going to land at, whether you decide you're a theist or an atheist or somewhere in between or whatever, that as long as you promise that you'll be honest to yourself from where you're at, I think that's what's most important. Don't go to something because it's comforting. I think that's the worst thing you can do for yourself in the long run, because you're going to feel that cognitive dissonance, you know? And sometimes you just got to rip the band-aid off. That's what I had to do anyway. But I don't know.
There is a huge amount of cognitive dissonance with this, and it's very difficult to work through.
I believe it.
But
I 100% believe it. But you know what? I guarantee you're not the only person out there thinking the thoughts you're thinking right now. And I guarantee there's people in chat that are probably thinking the same thing. So I hope you can talk to other people besides myself and Rich about this too. And like hopefully work some stuff out from different perspectives too. You know?
yes,
Not just us, dirty non-believers, right?
no, no. I mean, the recovering from religion is excellent. They have monthly meetings. I try to attend when I'm available, but again, it's very hard, and I'm sure we're all sort of in the same boat, regardless, working through this. Even if we're theists or atheists, it's still, something everybody
Yeah.
should talk about, discuss, and think about. I mean,
I agree. I wish I knew how empathetic and comforting the atheist community could be, because I was taught that it was a bunch of nasty people that just hated all Christians. And you know what? The vast majority of atheists I met, they really don't hate Christians. They hate what these beliefs have done to people and how they have affected the way that they view the world and how they treat other people. Honestly, that's my biggest gripe. I don't care if you believe God's real or not. I care what that belief has affected and how you treat gay people or how you view my morals. Right? That's the big thing for me. Anyway, Jasmine, we do got to let you go because we've been on this call for a bit. We got
okay.
a lot of people who
Thank you.
want to talk
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Richard, but thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very much.
calling. Of
Thank you,
course.
Jen.
I hope you continue to have dialogues and figure out where you're at for yourself. It's important you do that. You're doing yourself a favor, honestly. Which is good. It's a brave thing to do. It's a brave thing to do. So anyway, Rich, what
Mm.
do you have anything else you want to say about that call?
Nothing. It's interesting. I mean, I come from a society where we're basically most of us are atheists, and so
Yeah.
we have a different societal pressure in that
Yeah.
if somebody says you're atheist, the response is, "Oh, yeah, all right." Um,
Yeah.
and it's interesting the pressures that there are in other parts of the world to remain part of a group that was much about being part of a society and being worried about being ostracized from this group that is your identity, your life, everything about it. And again, it's fear, it's a worry, it's another part of that that's every bit as big as the worry about hell and that kind of stuff. And it's just good that there are things like recovering from religion and the ACA that can make
Mm.
people realize that there is a community out there. That community may be gone, but there's a new one. Come and join us. We're a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and we can be, and we can do everything the old community did. So
And more. We're less restrictive on a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
and more.
Uh
Yeah,
sometimes
less
for the best,
restrictive, and we won't
you
terrify
know.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. There are some existential conversations you can have that can be pretty terrifying, but that's on your own
oh yeah,
volition. We're not telling people what to think, right? At least.